Hello YouTube and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. It's Dare playing Mount and Blade Bannerlord, and I'm going to be showing you the ultimate Berserker guide, the build guide for two-handed axemen in this game. It's one of the most fun roleplays I've ever done, and it's a really overpowered guide, so we'll dive into that. But before we get started with the details here, these videos take a very long time to make. They take tons of time playing the game to get the character leveled up and to like test all the different skills together. It takes forever to do this, so it's a lot of effort involved. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel today, and you'll see lots more content that hopefully you like just as much as this in the future. And of course, it never hurts to like the video or leave a comment. But with all that in mind, let's start it off with our sandbox build. All right, and so you're going to want to pick your character culture, and as we're going for the Berserker, the heavy two-handed axeman, I think the obvious choice is Sturgia, and so this one gives you for advantages, recruiting and upgrading infantry troops are 25% cheaper, and armies lose 20% less daily cohesion. So you can lead a large infantry army as a Sturgian very easily. The downside is 20% more relationship penalty from kingdom decisions. So if you're going to form a kingdom and make decisions, do them before you get a bunch of members into your kingdom, and you won't have nearly as much of a penalty to worry about. So yes, we're going to start as a Sturgian. For our choices here, we're going to say you were born into a family of a boyar's companions. This gives you 10 skill levels and 1 focus point to riding and two-handed, and 1 attribute to social. The main thing here that we're focusing on is just the fact that we get that two-handed boost. Riding is fine, but as a Berserker, I normally like to play on foot, so I don't do a whole lot of riding anyway. But we also get a point for social, which is nice. As a child, you were noted for your brawn. We, of course, want to do that. This gives us a point for throwing, which is nice, because I like to have throwing as a secondary when I'm being a Berserker. That way I can throw my throwing axes. And we get a point for vigor and another point for two-handed. So plus 10 skill levels to two-handed and throwing. Like all the village children, you helped out in the fields. You also worked in the village smithy. This gives you 10 skill levels and 1 focus point to two-handed and smithing, and 1 attribute point to vigor. So we get another point for vigor, another point for two-handed, and this actually gives us some for smithing, which is obviously an excellent advantage. As a youngster growing up in Calradia, war was never too far away. You trained with the Hearthguard. This one gives you 10 skill levels and 1 focus point to riding and polearm, and 1 attribute point to endurance. So the main thing here is just that we get that endurance. It doesn't hurt to have the polearm or the riding again, but mostly we just want that endurance so we can level up our riding, athletics, and smithing even more. So mostly it's just about that endurance point here. If you don't want to do that one because you don't like those focus points for this, the other option is just trained with the infantry, because that gives you a polearm and a one-handed, which again don't really play into it that much, but it gives us that attribute point in vigor instead. So it's up to you. I'm going to go with the Hearthguard though, just because that's the way that I did it on the tested playthrough that I have, that I'm using it as an example today. Before you set out for life of adventure, your biggest achievement was you defeated an enemy in battle. This one gives you 10 skill levels and 1 focus point to one-handed and two-handed, and you get 1 attribute point to vigor, plus 1 to valor, and 20 renown. So you can see we've got that extra point for two-handed, we get another point for vigor, we get one-handed, which doesn't hurt, but I don't really use one-handed weapons when I'm playing as a Berserker anyway. So that's all for that. And then we're going to start at level 30, or at age 30, just because that way we're starting as a man instead of a boy. And we have 4 unspent focus points and 2 unspent attribute points. And of course, we're going to want to start her on Bannerlord difficulty because it's the most fun and the most hard. And so if you do all of that, this is what you're going to look like. You'll have, again, 2 attribute points to use and 4 focus points to use. And we're going to use them as follows. We already have vigor at 5, which is nice, so we're going to bring our endurance up to 5 as well. So now that we've got both of those up, we're going to finish off our two-handed, so we've got 5 full points in two-handed, and we're going to put the rest of those into athletics. So we're going to bring our athletics up to 3 there, because we're going to want to make sure that we're highly mobile as a Berserker, mobile and fast. So if you do everything as I've showed you here, vigor will be 5, control will be 2, endurance will be 5, cunning will be 2, social will be 3, intelligence will be 2. Skill-wise, we'll have level 10 in one-handed, level 40 in two-handed, level 10 in polearm, level 10 in throwing, level 20 in riding, level 1 in athletics, and then for our focus points, we'll have 1 in one-handed, 5 in two-handed, 1 in polearm, 2 in riding, and 3 in athletics. Oh, plus 1 in smithing, and level 10 in smithing. So that is what it will look like starting off. Now let's jump into a save I have much further into the game and show you how to distribute your points as you go. All right, and so you can see we're at level 50 here, so significantly high level, but we've got our points distributed all around the place. So you can see that we don't really waste anything. We don't have any levels. I mean, we haven't done a whole lot of engineering because we've had our clan engineer doing most of that for us because we weren't focusing on it. We didn't do a lot of bow and crossbow, but we've done a lot of everything else. So the first area we're going to want to focus on is our two-handed skills, because as a berserker that is probably the most important. And so the first skill we're going to want to focus on there is wood chopper. This increases your damage with two-handed weapons by 30% against shields, and infantry troops in the formation you're leading have their damage increased by 15% against shields. So very useful at breaking through enemy shield formation. Our second skill we're going to want to focus on is Head Basher. This one increases your damage by 10% with two-handed axes and two-handed maces. So since we're a berserker, we're going to want to use a two-handed axe instead of a sword, or I guess you could use a mace, but I prefer the axe for this build, and this gives you a bonus for that. It also says infantry troops in the formation you're leading have their damage increased by 2%. So another boost to the infantry that you're leading, and as a berserker, especially a Sturgian one, I like to lead infantry-heavy armies. Our next skill we're going to want to focus on is Show of Strength. Two-handed weapons that can knock down ignore 15% knockdown resistance, and so weapons that can knock down are things like axes and maces. So this just gives you another boost to getting through your enemy's knockdown resistance. And it also makes infantry troops 20% cheaper to recruit, which is great. Next up we have Shield Breaker, which says 40% more damage to shields with two-handed weapons. Infantry troops in the formation that you're leading have their damage increased by 10% against shields. Again, this just makes you even more effective and all of your troops more effective against shields, so a great perk to have there. Next we have the perk literally called Berserker. This one says increases your damage with two-handed weapons by 20% when you have less than half hit points. Garrison wages are reduced by 10% in governed towns. So this one is one that you could go one way or the other, but this one means that as you take damage and your health gets lower, this one gives you a damage boost, so that's very, very useful. Then of course we have Arrow Deflection. This one's not a choice. It's the only skill at this level, but it says you can deflect arrows with two-handed swords by blocking, so nothing super important there because it's not really, applicable here. At level 175, we have the Terror skill. So this one says your kills with two-handed weapons have 20% higher effect on enemy troop battle morale. So every skill you get with your two-handed weapon is going to scare the crap out of your enemy, which is great. And this one also increases your prisoner limit. Then at level 200, we have the Thick Hide skill. This one gives you plus 5 hit points, which is great. And it says troops in your party have their hit points increased by 5. So another great advantage to making yourself and your troops more durable. Finally, at level 225, we have Blade Master, which says increases your two-handed weapon damage by 10%, so get a nice damage boost there, and infantry troops in the formation you're leading have their attack speed increased by 2%, so they get to attack faster. Then, of course, we have the top one, which again isn't a choice, but it says Way of the Great Axe. Each skill point above 250 grants you 0.2% speed increase with two-handed weapons, and each skill point above 250 grants you 0.5% damage increase with two-handed weapons. So you can see we're maxed out at level 330 here, so we've got a significant speed and damage increase with our two-handed weapons. So that's the main area of focus for this one, but we have some athletics perks that I like to focus on as well. And so those are the Morning Exercise perk, which increases your movement speed by 3% and increases the movement speed of foot troops in your formation by 5%, which is great. Then we have the Fury skill, which is level 50. This one says while on foot, your weapon handling is increased by 10%, which is nice for a big, heavy two-handed weapon. And foot troops in your formation gain 10% increased weapon handling, so useful for both of you. Then we have the Powerful perk, which says increases your damage by 4% with all melee weapons, and troops in your formation deal 2% more melee damage. So this one just makes you and your troops deal significantly more damage. At level 125, we have Surging Blow, which increases your speed damage bonus by 30% while on foot, and foot troops in your formation gain 30% speed damage bonus. So this one is going to be great for running hits and stuff like that with your two-handed weapon, make them deal significantly more damage. And then finally at level 250, we have the perk Ignore Pain, which increases your armor by 10% while on foot, and foot troops in your formation gain plus 5 armor. So this one is just going to be another one that makes you significantly more strong because your armor gets better because of it. Outside of that, there's all sorts of perks that you could focus on, but since the Berserker can either be one where you roleplay, and in this playthrough I've been roleplaying as a Berserker. I like to fight on foot pretty much exclusively, and I lead an army of basically entirely infantry, and so you can really roleplay heavily into it, or you personally can just play as a Berserker, and your army can be whatever, so it doesn't matter nearly as much in that regard. But yeah, this is definitely an overpowered build if you want to be a two-handed axeman. It's very powerful, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I use throwing as a backup weapon, so I like to keep some throwing axes on me. Again, mostly just for roleplay, but also because it's fun. Very powerful build here. As far as your weapon and stuff that I recommend going with here, the weapons that I have in this build, you could do it differently than this, but I have a one-handed axe and a shield, which I like to use when I'm like climbing over a castle wall or something like that, just because they're easier to use in confined spaces. But my main weapon is my big two-handed axe, and you can use a lot of the really good base ones that you can buy in the game, or you can craft one like I've done here and get a really good axe. And then of course you have throwing axes. Now another way to go with this, one way that I found was pretty fun, is to just do your main axe, and then instead of having a one-handed axe and a shield, you do your axe and then 3 clutches of throwing axes instead. So it gives you a lot more throwing axes to use ranged, but definitely a lot less versatility in the up-close stuff, and then you don't have a shield at all. And then of course just some nice heavy armor, and you're all set to go as a really powerful, really well-armored and really well-armed Berserker troop. Again, since this one isn't as important for the troops that you're leading, it could be paired with anything. It doesn't super matter what you go with, but I like to do, if I'm playing as a Berserker, I like to have a big infantry army, and the best infantry units come from Sturgia. So obviously the really cool ones are the heroic line breakers. They're these shock infantry. They come with decently heavy armor and a big two-handed axe, so they're fun to play with, and they're the part of the Sturgian recruit train. You go to warrior, soldier, linebreaker, heroic linebreaker. So they're definitely fun, but the best infantry in the game are the Sturgian heavy spearmen and the Sturgian heavy axemen. So I like to have just a mix of all 3 of these troops, but they're a lot of fun to play with. They're ridiculously heavy armored. They do a ton of damage. They've got great skills, great armor. They're really, really good units all around, and a mix of them is actually super versatile. So, like I said, it doesn't super matter what troops you choose to use, but when I'm playing as a Berserker, I prefer to have a nice heavy infantry army. So that is my ultimate Berserker or two-handed axeman build guide for Mount & Blade Bannerlord. Hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful, but that's all for today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.